What's up, guys? Habitual Truther here, and today's video I'm going to talk about 4 of my near-death experiences. It's not all of them. I can think of 8 at the top of my head, but there's 4 particular ones I want to talk about. The first one happened when I was just 1 year old. My mom told me about this one. She came home from work one night, and my dad was drunk, standing over my bassinet while I was asleep, and he was standing over my bassinet holding a knife in his hand, threatening to kill me, telling my mom, "How much do you love this baby? Do you really love this baby?" And so then I guess my mom charged him and knocked him into the wall and, was able to stop the situation or whatever. But my dad was a drunken alcoholic. But anyways, that was the first one. Now, let's see. The next one I want to talk about was when I was trimming trees. This was back in 2000 and I want to say 2005. So I started working with Lewis Tree Service in 2005, the spring of 2005. Well, anyways, in this near-death experience, we were doing highline work, of course, and we started off in Streetsboro, Ohio, and then we were working our way up towards Cleveland. And this was now summertime, so we were actually in a suburb right outside of Cleveland called Macedonia. And we happened to be working in a park where the high lines ran through the park, and because there were so many trees that needed to be taken down because of the limbs encroaching the power lines, that we broke off into 3 crews, in which each crew had its own foreman. Well, I happened to be bending over, grabbing brush from a tree that we had trimmed, and I was dragging it back to the chipper. And then what happened was I was bending over picking up more brush, and the guy that was in the crew across from us didn't bother to yell headache, which is something that we do before we drop a tree to let everyone know, heads up, get out of the way, there's a tree about to come down. He just brought it down, didn't say anything, and next thing you know, while I'm bent over grabbing this brush, the tree hits me in my right shoulder and drives me into the ground. And it happened so fast, I didn't even realize what happened. And then when they pulled the tree off me and helped me up, I was in a lot of pain. But my foreman said to me, I was right there, like maybe 10 feet away from you, and I saw the whole thing go down. He said, "You're lucky to be alive." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because if that tree would have been 3 inches over to the right, it would have came down and hit you right in the back of the head and would have snapped your neck, and you would have died instantly." And this happened like around 11:30 in the morning. It was before lunch break. And I was living with my mom at the time. So when I got home from work, first thing my mom says when I walk through the door is, "Hey Aaron, did anything happen to you at work today?" And I was just like, yeah. And she said, "Well, before you say anything, it was about 11:30 this morning. I was I was in the restroom peeing, and all of a sudden God told me to start praying for you, like an urgency. So she said she reached for the closest thing that belonged to me, which was my toothbrush on the sink, and she grabbed it and began praying for me, praying for protection. And my jaw about hit the floor because I said to her, well, as a matter of fact, right at about 11:30, there was another crew that was taking down a tree in this park in Macedonia that we were working in, that was in the crew across from us. And the guy didn't bother to yell headache, brought the tree down, and while I was bent over picking up brush, the tree hit me in my right shoulder blade and just drove me into the ground. And she started crying when I told her. And she said, I believe God sent an angel to protect you. I said, you know what? He had to have, because my foreman was standing right there, he said, and saw the whole thing happen. And he said that if that tree would have been just 3 inches to the left, it would have came right down in the back of my head and would have snapped my neck, and I would have died instantly. And so I know that God must have sent an angel when my mom prayed for me, and the angel must have pushed that tree over just enough so that it hit me in the shoulder rather than hit me in the head and snap my neck. But you know, I did damage my shoulder pretty bad, but man, I could have been dead. But anyways, that was back in 2005. That was the second one I wanted to talk about. Now the third one I want to talk about is something that I'm still dealing with to this day. I deal with PTSD. And it happened October 10th, 2014. My son was with me too, and he was over at my house. And what happened was, we were home invaded. It was about 10 after 5 in the afternoon. Two big thugs kicked in my door. One had a switchblade, went over and held the switchblade to my son's throat, while the bigger guy basically grabbed my son's guitar as soon as he came in and broke it over my head and started beating me with the neck of my son's guitar like 150 times while my son had a switchblade held to his throat. And let me tell you, the thug that was beating on me was like the size of an NFL lineman. He was huge. He outweighed me by at least 150 pounds. If, you know, I mean, he was big. But anyways, during this whole encounter, all I could think about was my son, and I just kept watching my son to make sure that he was okay. And all of a sudden, like 10 minutes into this, and the dude kept saying, use Aubrey, calling me Aubrey. And I knew that there was a guy named Aubrey that used to live there before me. But how this dude's confusing me with Aubrey is beyond me, because Aubrey is like a short little dude. He's like maybe 5'6" at best, and I'm 6'4". So the whole thing was real suspect. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to go into too much detail about that. But anyways, after the dude beat me 150 times with the neck of the guitar, of my son's guitar, then, and this all happened right in my living room, and then he picks up a thick drinking glass from the end table and then begins bashing me in the back of my head with the thick bottom end of the drinking glass. And my son told me he counted 75 times was how many times this dude hit me in the back of the head with that thick drinking glass. And there was blood everywhere. It felt like I had just stood under a waterfall. I had so much blood just pouring down my face. My living room looked like a murder scene after the fact. But anyways, so after that, then I remembered, and mind you, the pepper spray that my aunt had given me, like literally like 3 weeks before this home invasion occurred, was in my pocket the whole time. But I mean, the whole thing caught me off guard. And so after getting hit with this thick drinking glass, I seen he was starting to get tired. So I reached down real quick because I was in the chair as he was beating on me, and there was blood all over the back of my chair too. So there was a love seat. Yeah, no, it was a couch. I had 2 couches in that living room. Yeah, so it was the other couch, which I was right next to. So I reached underneath the couch because I remembered I had stuck a tire iron underneath my couch. And he saw me pull it out. So right when I pulled out the tire iron, he grabs the other end of the tire iron, and he's trying to pull it out of my hand. And if I would have let go, he would have killed me with that thing. And then they would have killed my son. I know that for a fact because my son would have been a witness to my murder. And my son was only 14 at the time, mind you. Well, so anyways, I stand up at this point because my adrenaline is just flowing. And so with his open hand, like the hand that he wasn't grabbing the tire iron with, he started punching me in the face. And so I started hitting him back with my left hand because I was holding onto it with my right hand. So I was hitting him back. So we were just basically trading punches, boom, boom, back and forth, back and forth. And then I realized the pepper spray is in my pocket. So I made a decision, and I said, this is a bigger dude. He's going to get winded. He's not going to be able to keep this up forever. So what I'm going to do is as soon as I see his arm drop and I see that he's winded, that's when I'm going to strike. And sure enough, a few minutes went by and he got tired, dropped his arm, and that's when, with my left hand, and it was in my left pocket, I reached in, pulled out the pepper spray that my aunt gave me, and I sprayed the dude right in his eye, and I didn't even let go of the button of the pepper spray. Right after I nailed the dude that had the tire iron, I just kept it going and boom, nailed the other guy. The guy holding the switchblade didn't even realize what was happening, and I nailed him right in the eyes with the pepper spray. And they both took off running out my front door, holding their eyes. And I because you know the big guy let go of the tire iron that we were both struggling over after I hit him with the pepper spray. So then I jumped up and ran after them, and of course the skinny dude with the switchblade got off the porch first, and I swung the tire iron at the big dude that was beating on me right when he was about to make it to the steps, and I missed the back of his head by this much, by like an inch. And they both took off going down towards 422, or no, not 422, Elm Road, because I live right next to a cash land. So my house was right next to a cash land. I had a 2-story. And there were some surveillance cameras there, which, you know, after I got the police report and everything, they had detectives that were looking for these guys, which they never found. And they both said that, man, those guys hadn't been out of town because they're not in our database or anything. And they had their faces on camera. And according to the video, they said that they seen them approach my house passing Cashland. At 10 after 5, they caught them on video going to my house. And then they said it was about 5:40 when the camera caught them leaving my house going past Cashland holding their eyes. So that tells me that I went through that beating, that home invasion lasted an entire half hour. And let me tell you, my face was wrecked. My head was, let's put it this way, I was so messed up from it that after I collapsed, after I swung and missed, when I swung the tire iron, I collapsed to my knees, and I hear my son in there in the living room crying, and this is one of the parts that made me the saddest was my son says, "You're not gonna die, are you, Dad?" And I said, no, son, I'm going to be just fine. Do me a favor, grab me the phone book so I can call the ambulance. That's how disoriented I was from this whole ordeal. I didn't think to just dial 911 on my cell phone. Instead, I'm going through the the white pages, and I look up the Warren Police Department. And I call the Warren Police Department and told them that I need an ambulance sent out, that I was just involved in a home invasion. So they sent an ambulance right away, and before they even put me in the ambulance, the guy had me sit down in the chair on my porch, and he was asking me questions, the EMT was, and then he put a neck brace around my neck, and then they laid me down on the gurney, and then I said, can my son come? And they said, yeah, he can ride in the back of the ambulance with you to the emergency room. They asked me what hospital I wanted to go to. I told them St. Joe's, because Trumbull was a horrible hospital. But anyways, once they wheeled me into the ER, I seen the doctors and nurses come running up towards me, like they must have called it in, and they were looking at me with great shock and awe. Like, how they were looking at me like how is this guy conscious right now, let alone breathing and alive? That's how jacked up I looked, especially my head. You can ask my son, the back of my head was so swollen outward that my head was shaped like a football in the back of the head from all the beating I took in the back of the head with that thick drinking glass. And I had blood all over me, and so the first thing they were concerned about was, we need to get you into x-ray so we could see if there's any spinal fluid leaking, or if you have brain fluid leaking, or concussion, or any skull fractures. So they take me into x-ray first thing, do some x-rays, and then they brought me back out to one of the rooms in emergency, wheeled me in there, and then they said that there will be a doctor there shortly to see me that was going to come in and stitch me up. Well, luckily the results came back that there was no fractures in the back of my skull. However, I had 3 fractures in my left ocular eye wall. It's the ocular bone, which is your eye socket bone. I had 3 fractures in my left eye socket, which they told me that I definitely need to go see an optometrist after to do a follow-up, because they said when that bone heals back, because it's a fracture, they said it could heal back jagged, and what could end up happening is the jagged bone, after it heals, could end up cutting my optic nerve of my eye, and I can end up going blind in that eye. So anyways, my son's sitting there in the room with me, and then the doctor comes in and he starts stitching me up. I had stitches in the back of my head, the side of my head. I had a lot of stitches. I had like 15 stitches on the side. I still have a scar there. If I shave my head, you'd be able to see it. I normally shave my head, but I let it grow a little bit this time. And then I had stitches in my eyebrow that went all the way down to here as well. So altogether, they said there was like almost 30 stitches, like 28 stitches or something altogether. And so they got me stitched up, and they cleared me to go home, and then my aunt came and picked me and my son up. But I prayed, and let me tell you, I didn't go see the optometrist like I was told to. I just prayed about it, and God healed me, and I didn't go blind in this eye or anything. Thank the Father who sits upon the throne. So that was the third near-death experience I wanted to talk about in this video, and now that leads me to the fourth near-death experience, which is the craziest one of all. Alright, and this happened out here in Arizona. The other 3 happened back in Ohio. And this just goes to show the devil, Satan, is really trying to take me out of the game. Because I believe the Father Yahuwah has given me all this knowledge and understanding and wisdom for a reason, so I could make these videos and reach as many people as I possibly can, plus whoever I talk to in passing or whatnot. Anyways, my ex-girlfriend Lisa, who I was with out here, we were together at the time, and then, I started seeing like her true ways. Like God was showing me all kinds of stuff. Like for one, she didn't recognize any of the scriptural changes that I noticed that were happening since 2016. And today the Bible is practically unrecognizable because it is changing supernaturally. And I was trying to point out all the changes to her. Like even the word couch is in the Bible now. And what's funny is couch wasn't even invented until the 1850s by a guy, by the, having the last name Couch. It was the mid 1800s when he invented the couch. And mind you, I read from the King James Version, which the original translation of the King James dates back to 1611. So over 200 years, almost 240 years prior to the invention of the couch. So I know for a fact that the word couch should definitely not be in the Bible, especially when it wasn't even invented until the 1800s, and they're saying that the guy that was paralyzed in the Bible that Jesus healed, take up your mat, has been changed to like take up your couch. How ridiculous does that sound? Have you ever seen one man pick up a couch and just carry it himself? Like that's ridiculous. Just like stone tablets. The stone tablets, the 10 Commandments were written on the stone tablets that God gave to Moses. But it's now been changed to stone tables in the Bible. And it says that Moses carried down 2 stone tables with the 10 Commandments written on them. How ridiculous, But anyways, she didn't recognize any of the scriptural changes. I tried explaining to her that we don't live on a spinning ball, and she insisted, well, I have a degree in astronomy, so I know outer space is real, and we are spinning, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no hope for her. She's just blind to everything. She believes all the lies that we were taught in school and whatnot. But for her to claim to be a Christian for 33 years and not notice any of these changes, like even the most obvious change that most people know, Isaiah 11:6, how it used to be, and the lion shall lay with the lamb, has been changed to, and the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. Lion's been changed to wolf. And I pointed that out to her, and she's like, no, it's always said wolf. Like, really? You're really going to say that with a straight face? So anyways, God was showing me her true colors because he needed me to see what great delusion she was under, because God himself said that he would send great delusion. So that because people are such lovers of lies, that he shall send them a lie, so they shall believe a lie. And so, anyways, back to this. We were together for, I want to say, almost a year. It was almost a year we were together. And then it was I want to say towards the end of November was when she kind of broke it off with me, but she planned this all out. She had me move in with a so-called friend of hers that was living in the trailer park we were at. His name was Rick. And let me tell you, I'm going to be honest here. I used to be a big time Oxycontin addict and alcoholic. I quit drinking in 2017, October 29th. But let me tell you, she set me up. This guy, Rick, that she had me move in with was a crystal meth addict. And for the first 3 days that I lived with him, he kept trying to get me to hit this pipe with him. And I said, look, dude, I don't do crystal meth. I've never done crystal meth. I have no desire to do crystal meth. Quit asking me to do that shit, because I don't do that shit no more. As a matter of fact, I quit drinking. You know, and I had just quit drinking like literally the month before that, because yeah, so it was like I was sober for 1 month now from alcohol, and he kept insisting, and then by the third day, I don't know, I screwed up. I take the blame because it was my decision, but I just got sick and tired of this dude hounding me about it. So finally, after 3 days of bugging me, I finally took a hit. Little did I know that this was going to be one of those drugs where you do one hit and then you're just like, boom, hooked, like heroin, you know. Next thing you know, I go on a 3-day binge with this dude that I'm now staying with, and I'm on 3 days with no sleep, smoking meth every day, all day with this dude.